Welcome to Butterfly of Wisdom, everyone. And today, it's Friday. 1, happy TGIF. 2, we're going to be open and honest about this subject and this guest we have on today. Mel and I have brought on a very special guest named Rebecca Price, and Mel and her and I are doing a project that I never thought I would be involved with, but apparently I am. So we're going to be open and honest about this topic and the subject because Rebecca's still open and honest about it. So please be careful if the kids are listening to this one episode of Butterflies of Wisdom. And without further ado, I'm actually going to throw it over to Mel Martin, and so he can introduce Rebecca.
Hello, Wynn. Happy Friday, everybody. How are you guys? Well, I am absolutely thrilled to do this show today. I would like you all to meet my good friend, Rebecca Price. She is a brilliant person. Love her. She's awesome. And she and I have recently decided to collaborate on an upcoming podcast we're going to do called The Art of Sexuality. I think she's a tremendous asset and will add a lot of value to the topic. And being in the coaching industry myself and understanding how important it is to have a healthy mind, body, and soul, the art of sexuality and your relationship with yourself is really, really important because it's a major part of every relationship. So anyway, I just thought it would be a good idea to introduce Rebecca to the show and kind of go from there. So Rebecca, welcome.
Hi, thank you. I'm super excited to be here doing this with you guys today.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yep. So, Wynn, do you have any specific topics or any kind of ideas that you want to share here and kind of get this going? And I'm certain that Rebecca can give us some great insight.
Yes, I do. I want to know why Rebecca, one, started this journey about being open and honest with sex, and then why you guys have now decided to do a podcast about it. Take it open and honest out publicly.
Okay, well, it's been a long journey for me. What really triggered it was recently on the dating scene, meeting and hearing from men how they were in sexless marriages. And it kind of surprised me to really hear at how bad and how long people were suffering in their marriages because they couldn't talk about it. Things were happening. And then I went to dinner with a friend of mine, and she said that she thought part of the reason is that women lost interest in sex. And I said I absolutely disagree. I think really what happens is we lose connection with our own bodies. And then from there, our bodies start shutting down, our communication changes, and it affects our relationship with our significant others. And I know part of me, that's not what happened in my marriage, but I do know my body kind of shut down after my oldest son had open heart surgery. I wasn't taking care of myself, and then I found yoga and running. And as soon as I started doing that, everything changed. And I didn't know what was going on in my body. It was like my sex drive just went through the roof, and I started Googling things, and I didn't really understand it. And there wasn't a lot of articles or information out there. And then in just talking to people about it, I went to a birthday party, and a woman said that she doesn't know how to talk to her husband about sex. And I went, wait, what? And so it's just brought me on through the journey of research and finding and information and talking to people and enjoying it. And people are responding to me because I am so open, and I always hear that feedback. Oh my goodness, you are so open. Thank you so much. I've had people say thank you to me for answering questions to them. And it's been really neat to have people reach out to me and talk to people, and I'm having a blast. So I started my Facebook page of The Art of Sexuality.
And
which is,
now,
I'm so sorry. Please go ahead.
Now you're taking it publicly and taking it off Facebook and putting it on the airwaves.
Yes. And I would love to be able to take it to seminars and just get people to understand, because the bottom foundation for all of this is actually not about sex itself. It's about being open, understanding things, how even breathing affects our own sexuality. You know, sometimes I'll share some facts with people and they'll look at me like, really? Like my favorite one that I'll share is, if a man is having an erection problem and women are having dryness issues, did you know they're most likely they are shallow breathers? And people are like, wow, really? And I actually have a friend, I actually set up alarms on her phone to remind her to take deep breaths.
Oh my God.
And it's educating people like that, and they're like, wow. And I've written an article that I've shared, and it's, people just don't know. But it's a connection with their own body, their own breath, and it's amazing.
And
you know, I would have to
how to look themselves either. Go ahead, Mel. I'm sorry.
No, I apologize. What I was going to say is that, you know, from a physiological perspective, you're spot on with that, Rebecca, in that, you know, when you're shallow breathing and you're fast-paced with your breathing, you're not in a relaxed state. And the one thing I do know about sex, you know, from a male perspective is when you're anxious, and maybe this was probably, you know, not gender specific, but when you're anxious, your stress level goes so high. And, you know, to have healthy sex, a healthy sexual encounter, one should be relaxed because it's an enjoyable thing. It should not be a stressed out thing. And when it becomes stressful, and there are many reasons why, and, you know, from my own personal experience is just, you know, when you're not compatible, when the expectations are different, when, you know, you're not crossing the path together, so to speak, it makes it difficult. And I was in a relationship like that where, you know, you would seemingly think, oh God, here's two people that are attracted to each other and they have great individual sexual history, but they just couldn't get it together, literally. And it got so stressful towards, you know, the latter part of the relationship that it just wasn't enjoyable anymore. So I would have to concur with the breathing part of it. And it's funny how you can just get right down to the simple mechanic of it all. And when you shared that with that person, Rebecca, it probably just kind of hit a light bulb, and she probably didn't even understand it, that the mechanics of breathing can have everything to do with it, right?
Mm-hmm. You know, another thing that I did, there was a gentleman that I was speaking to, and he had some issues. And so I gave him basically an exercise to do. And he said, what I want you to do is get into a quiet, safe place, whether it's your bedroom, you could sit up, lay down. And I wanted him to take in 5 or 6 deep breaths. And the first time I kind of experimented sharing this with somebody, I didn't give him really good enough instructions because his response was too fast. And he went, okay, I'm done. Now what do I do? I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Okay, so take a step back, breathe in to the count of 5, hold it for a couple of seconds, and breathe out on the count of 6. And do this several times. And what I asked him to do is each time you do this, relax, connect with parts of your body and relax it from your feet and go literally part by part from your calves to your thighs to your hips to your belly and all the way up. And each time you're doing this and breathing, really feel the connection with your body. And I said, okay, we were doing this online. And I said, okay, I'm going to go get a cup of coffee while you try this exercise. And when I come back, tell me how you feel. And so by the time I got back, his response was, wow, that was incredible.
You know, obviously he connected with himself, right? I mean, sometimes we don't realize how disconnected we are from ourselves, from you know, that starts with self-language, that starts with, you know, your own insecurity and whatnot. And I've always believed there are certain things, people, places, or things or events that occur in your life early on that set the table for your self identity and perception of yourself, right? So, you know, when it comes to, you know, sexuality, I'm a firm believer that if you're not connected within, there's just no way you're going to connect with someone outside. It would be very, very difficult to do so. You know, what do you think?
Oh, I agree 100%. I know that I've talked to other people who are, married for years, and he would go touch her. And I told him, she's probably just cringing right now because she's lost connection with herself. And so she can't respond to you. And so it really is. And that's why I just beat this one, talk about it a lot, is just the art of sexuality is about ourselves first. And I know starting with yoga, Bikram yoga, having to stare at myself for 90 minutes was hard. And then the breathing exercises. And it really just changed my ability to let go. And then with myself of those perceptions of, maybe what my mom said about me when I was younger. And as time went on, it had an effect on everywhere I went, to the point sometimes people would say, would hit on me, and I'm involved with somebody, and they would say, well, I can't help it because your peacock feathers out. You have this thing about you. And I'm like, oh, okay, it's because I felt good and confident and I'm comfortable in my own skin.
Wow, that's, it's taken back to the yoga thing. Like you're first introduced to it, you gotta, you said something pretty stark. Standing in front of a mirror for 60 to 90 minutes, there's a certain level of ownership that's presented to you right then and there, right? There's a certain level of, hey, here you are. You can't run and hide from it. There you are, right? And how often do we really, really look in the mirror and really look at ourselves and see what we see? And it's funny how it sounds like it triggered a lot of things for you, and then now over time you've been able to either take ownership of it or understand it and digest it. And now, over time we're looking at self-confidence. I mean, sexuality has a lot to do with self-confidence, and it sounds like you kind of traveled that journey, which has led to where you are now.
Mm-hmm. And that's why when I have a son who's in his early 20s, and I still love talking to this age, especially to the girls, because I think they lack a lot of self-confidence in body parts, and it gets in their way. So they don't actually really understand how to thoroughly enjoy the experience with their partner, because they're, what do my thighs look like? What am I, who cares? Enjoy what's happening between two people. And I think that's part of my message. And one of the things that I love about the message for the art of sexuality is it's, adult on up. And there's to 60s and 70s and 80s and all the way down to the, 20-year-olds. It should appeal to everybody, and it should have a conversation with everybody.
Right. The conversation of sex is not one that's very comfortable, especially I would gather think in the American society. I mean, you go to Europe, in the European countries, it's not that big a deal. I think would you say that Americans are kind of uptight about discussing sex openly?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah?
Yes. I interviewed a couple, and they've been married for a long time, and they wouldn't, and I was respectful to what their boundaries were and what they would say. It was more interested about their marriage as a whole, not their actual sex life. So I took the cues from them, but they were very guarded and private about it. But the good news was they were not that way with each other.
Oh.
So,
okay.
Yes.
So within the confines of their relationship, in a safe climate within themselves, they were okay. But the second it was, kind of being naked out to the world, so to speak, figuratively, that was going to be a hard thing for them to just kind of blurt out. So can you give us some insight on what that climate was for them? I mean, because here's the thing, right? So being able to talk about sex together as a couple also has its limitations if there's some judgment involved. I've been there, where you have a partner and you fear judgment because you heard a particular comment, or you wanted something and you voiced it and it didn't go your way, or it wasn't granted, or whatever the case may be. So can you give us some insight on what was the climate like for this couple, and what's a good way to start developing and peeling away the layers so that you don't have a judgmental climate?
Well, that's a great question, though. I actually thought about the lady at the birthday party who said she doesn't know how to talk to her husband of many years. And I got to thinking about that, and I thought about my friends, and, they still have, they're more conservative sexually, but the husband reads articles, and so it makes him more experimental, and then they talk about things from there. But I thought about this woman at the birthday party. I thought, how do you approach that with a significant other? And my suggestion is always start simple. Ask about likes or dislikes. I think that's a great way to start the conversation. Is what am I doing that you like or don't like? Is there something I can do differently? Make it playful, make it light, so that it doesn't have to be awkward. And then, maybe what are your boundaries? What are things that you absolutely will not do? And because everybody is different. But I think if you keep it light and playful, I think it at least gets the conversation going.
A lot of it's trust too, right? So making it light and playful doesn't have to make it too heavy, right? Because let's face it, like, if you really want to have a sexual act done in the manner you want it done, you've got to get graphic with it, right? You've got to be descriptive with it. It's not every day you talk about that. So if you go right into just point by point, blow by blow, no pun intended, you get into detail right away, it could be a little overwhelming to your partner. So if you keep it light, I like the idea of keeping it light and playful, then you start kind of building a little bit of trust and a little bit more, how would you say, expanded vocabulary. It's okay to talk about it. It's like a little chess game, right? Oh, I could say this, so that's okay. I could say this, that's okay. And next thing you know, you're full blown right into it, because that's really the ultimate goal, right? You want to get into a full blown being able to make conversation and say, honey, I like it this way, or honey, can you move that way, or put your leg up that way, whatever the case may be. If you're able to do that, oh, watch out. Then you're going to have a really, really great time. And if you're able to have a great time after time after time after time, now you're accumulating a major part of your relationship in a very healthy manner, in a very strong manner, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. And because I am so open and, being on the dating scene after my divorce, I was pretty open about that. And I would ask those questions. What are your likes? What don't you like? And I would start with little things that I really like, saying, there's certain body parts, like my neck is super sensitive, and sharing that information. And when you start slowly like that with just little things, then you start, like you say, you build up that trust, and then you can expand to other things that you may like or have tried, or oh no, I would never do that type of thing.
Right. Yeah, like I said, I was in a relationship when it was, kind of judgmental. It's very hard. So anyway, Wynn, my apologies. Wynn, what's on your side there? What's on your plate? What can we delve into your side?
My side is that, how do I put this? Oh, to put it next way. My side is, how do we explain to the disabled that yes, they're humans, and yes, they can have sex no matter their disability. So because Americans are so uptight about it, the disabled is also uptight about it. I mean, some of us are coming out, but not all of us. But I want to explain to the disabled population how this would work for them, Rebecca.
Yeah, I was reading an article recently, and it talked about, the disabilities and how, it doesn't stop a person from having great sex. It was I didn't fully get to read the whole article, but it was a great article to say, again, it's all communication, just being open to it and addressing it and asking questions. Because even if you personally, like, you don't have a disability, there's other things that wind up getting in our way anyway. And so it really does take some courage too. I know that people are very afraid to do it and have the conversation, but I think it's just having the courage to ask the questions and say how you feel and what you need.
Okay, so it's all about open communication, no matter what you are dealing with, whether it's disabled bodies or the disabled population.
Right, because at the end of the day, Why are we afraid to talk about sex, regardless of the situation? That's how we all got here.
Yeah, let's be honest. Let's be honest.
Exactly.
Why are we so afraid? And Mel, I want your opinion on this too. Why are we so afraid to talk about sex? Why is a sex ed teacher, I've noticed sex ed teachers just a heebie-jeebies talking to 10 kids about it. I mean, why are we so afraid to be talking about a three-letter word, Rebecca? And then I'm going to ask the same question to Mel.
Well, I think it's a societal thing over time. You know, think about the television shows, the way women and men dressed, the conversations that they had. You couldn't talk about these things. And we've gone from generation to generation where we are very closed off. I certainly never had that. My education was just through the schools, not my mom at all. And which I think is a real disservice to the teenage to the young 20-somethings, because then that's how body issues start. That's how, because we feel like it's dirty. Yeah. But as time has gone on, and you know, we have the internet, and we have people researching it, and because of social media, the movies, we are more open about it. But it's still such a taboo subject, and I want to change that.
Well, good. I think someone should change that, because I know that I'm sick and tired of having PE teachers give the birds and the bees talk, and I am sick and tired of having them be as squeamish as the kids. And Mel, I ask the same question to you. Why do you think that schools are so squeamish about it?
You know, I would have to say it starts with the perception of the human body. I had studied Italian Renaissance art history back in college in London. It was one of the greatest moments of my journey to be able to spend a semester in London to study it. And I got to tell you, I spent many hours at the National Gallery in London looking at some beautiful works. And what strikes me, stands out in my mind, and back in that era, all the way to the Rubenesque era, the female and the male bodies were just really beautifully created. You know, they were really translated beautifully from the sculptures of Raphael, Michelangelo, all of them, and there was just such an honorable thing about it. And back then, art was their entertainment. It was their social media. When you broke out a new statue, a commissioned statue, or a painting or whatnot, it wasn't just the adults that saw it. It was the whole community. The whole world saw it, right? That was their world. You're talking about the Eastern, anything outside of the American borders. So now, with America only being 240 years old, they don't have that, or 241, based on 1776. They don't have that history, at least I could recall, from an early origin. If you look at the sex bombs, that started when? The 50s, Rita Hayworth, Marilyn Monroe. Already then, the country was already 190 years into it. I don't really recall any figure prior to that, like maybe Greta Garbo, back in, the 20s maybe, and Marlene Dietrich, somewhere around there, that they didn't really show the human body as identified as being okay to see. I think in World War II, you have the Rita Hayworth, you have the pinup girls. It starts to become that, but it's still, from a language perspective, it's so kind of sheltered with the 50s and 60s with what Leave It to Beaver, June Cleaver, right? Very, very clean, very professional looking, but there was not anything about sexuality with that I could recall. I came here in the 70s, and I don't recall anything like that, except for maybe when Charlie's Angel came into play. But as far as conversation, as far as everyday topics at the dinner table, no way, not even close. And I think a lot of that has to do with the self-perception and relationship you have with the human body. Maybe that's why, one of the reasons why it's not been a comfortable discussion, let alone the sexual encounters between two people. Only when Hugh Hefner put together Playboy and the whole Playboy Forum, then it became kind of mainstream. But look how many years that took into our American history to do that.
No, and I agree. And I know that sex ed classes only do it from one semester. And now I wish they would do it more, and I wish they would get into the disabled aspects of sex, but that's just me, and that's my feelings, because I grew up in a fairly open and honest household. I was told that when you get your women's cycle, this is what you're going to expect. It wasn't masked to me at all because I had a disability. Now I'm noticing birds and the bees, and that's it. And so, Rebecca, how do you think we're going to change that in society? And then we'll get to the podcast and how you guys are going to change that in mainstream. But how are we going to change that in the classroom? And then we'll get to how we're going to change that in society, Rebecca.
Well, it's interesting, and I had some things happen with my son when he was younger. And at the time when I was married, my ex-husband wouldn't go talk to my son about what happened. We basically caught him masturbating. Anyway, he was really embarrassed that his dad wouldn't talk to him because his mom never talked to him. So I immediately went in and talked to my son, and I was said, it's okay, it's normal, you were safe. I just want you to understand, because he was also watching some porn. I said, I want you to understand that this is not normal behavior between a man and a woman, and I don't want you to think that. But because I was not going to let my son be humiliated or embarrassed or feel that way, it made a huge difference for him and my relationship with him. So it's just a matter of continuing talking to our children and educating them. And we should be. We should be educating our kids so that it doesn't take them 20 or 30 years to have a healthy sexual relationship with somebody in their life. So it really does. It's like anything else. It starts at home. It starts with being open and wanting to help our kids and make those changes, now.
Exactly.
And I think it's really the girls, especially the girls. I think that's a huge one. And I really want to develop a way to do this and talk to the the preteens too, in a healthy way so they don't wind up with body images or relationship issues because they didn't know. They didn't have that conversation. And it's, the self-respect that goes along with it.
Yeah, it's loving your own body for you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the self-respect. And Mel and I, back in episode, 10, we talked about self-love, and this circles around to self-love, and we talked about healthy body image and talking to yourself nicely, and this circles around to talking to yourself nicely, even though you're not talking to yourself, you're treating your body nicely and looking at it nicely too. I mean, now these teens are seeing these skinny moving models on TV, and they want to go model, and the modeling agencies are looking for skinny moving models, and it drives me crazy because they're not looking for disabled models, let alone healthy body models. They're looking for the skinniest models known to man.
Mm-hmm. And to be able to say to a young girl, sorry, go ahead.
I think that you're right. It all has to start at home, and it all has to start at home and in the classroom. do.
Mm-hmm. And there's got to be places for these girls to go to find solid information, and to be able to say to a young girl, as you get older and you're more confident in your own body and you realize what that self-love is and you take care of yourself and you respect yourself, it will actually change your entire sexual experience that you have as an adult.
And Mel, how do you feel about this? Do you think we should start having open conversations with kids outside the classroom, outside sex ed classes? And do you think we should quit portraying the skinny models on TV and quit portraying America's Top Model here, aka the TV show? Because how do you feel about this?
Well, on the first point of discussing sex openly outside of sex ed, I would, I remember back in high school, I think it was more, what would be the name of the class? Sexual Reproduction 101? I mean, again, it's all mechanical. It's all physiological, right? But let's face it, having a healthy sex life is so much more about the emotional connection to it. At least I believe it is. All right.
Yes.
And the value of sex, right? The value of sex in a relationship between two people. It is such a major part of a relationship. If you don't think it is, you're lying to yourself. It has to be. If it's not a valuable part of your relationship, and if you are not working on it together, and yes, it does take work, okay? The honeymoon period does end. If you're not working on it together to make sure that it's fresh and alive and reciprocating and giving, you've got nothing. I'm sorry, you don't. So that value needs to be educated to kids at some point. That conversation, not just one time, but numerous times. Because what's the first step to having a healthy sexual relationship? Basic affection, right? A basic handhold, a basic, hand on your back, a basic kiss. Before you can even get to the act of, penetration between a male and female genitalia, you've got to have the affection first. There has to be some sort of value to that. It leads to that. If you don't have that, you've got nothing. I'm sorry. You don't. I know what that feels like firsthand. Trust me, it's not good. You're basically passing each other in the hallway saying hello, and maybe you're not even doing that. So it's very important that that value system be taught to to children all the way to adolescence, all the way through high school years, all the way through college, all that. It needs to be, because if that's not a foundation of your intimacy, I'm sorry, you're going to, unfortunately, you know what happens? You get it elsewhere. And you have a different definition of what sex is in your mind, right? If you don't have that emotional connection within your relationship, you now have an obscured, a kind of a skewed definition in your mind as to what it represents to you and what it is. And then you're going to go seek it elsewhere, right? Okay, so, and then the second point, Lynn, please remind me, what was this? There was a two-part question. Oh, models, right? Models on TV. But the funny thing is, the current Sports Illustrated cover, the issue for swimsuit model, is now way expanded. They're making a big deal out of, oh yes, we now have a plus-size model. Well, I'm sorry, plus-size people have been around since God's creation, right? It's just now within the last 10 years maybe, in the early 2000s or whatnot, where being a plus size can be sexy and beautiful, right? Now, I've been involved with enough women from pretty much all different sizes and shapes and heights and whatnot. And feeling sexy is from within. And I'm sure, Rebecca, you could agree with me on this. You both could, and it has nothing to do with if I'm skinny, I'm sexy, and if I'm not, I'm not. Well, that is a load of crap, because somebody's lying to you. Somebody set that in your head. Maybe it's a person, place, thing, or maybe it's just an accumulation of what you've seen in society. But no, it should not be restricted to that at all. It should definitely not. Wynn, you just posted a picture recently on Facebook that I saw, an updated profile picture. You look phenomenal in it. You look great. Hell, you look attractive. You are attractive.
Thank you.
You know what I mean? You are. I've seen enough. And no, I didn't Facebook stalk you. I just kind of checked out your pictures.
Yeah.
When we first got to know each other, of course you do that, right? And there's
Yes.
this evolution, and we are who we are in different phases. You know, there's going to be, you know, pictures of everybody that's kind of normal, and, you know, different emotions and different smiles and different things like that. And we are attractive because we feel attractive inside. That's why, right? So to the point of, you know, skinny models, big models, whatever, so, you know, the media is just now catching on, and just now meaning in the last, 10 years. So the Sports Illustrated magazine, the latest one for this year, is now featuring, and I think they may have featured it last year too, a plus-size model. And there's quite a few of them out there. So no, it should not be just restricted to that. And Rebecca, you could probably touch on this. Girls sometimes just don't have a healthy relationship with their self-image, right?
Oh, when I found yoga and I had to stare at myself, my mom made those mistakes of saying certain things about, oh, you inherited your grandmother's thunder thighs or some, you know. And so it really had an impact on me. And so when I just...
So it began.
Yes, it did. And also told me I wasn't very coordinated. So I was this clumsy thunder-thighed girl. And to have that stuck in my head, I really did. So in the beginning of doing yoga and having to stare at myself, which was really hard for me, I looked at all different body parts. I didn't want to look at myself in the face. But as time went on, I remember as I got healthier after my son's surgery, I started looking around going, hey, wait a minute. I'm like thinner than her. I wasn't really comparing myself. It was more like, oh, wow, I don't have the shape and the size and all this that my mom put in my head. It was quite the awakening, and it really changed how I looked at myself.
Yes. You were lucky enough to have that awareness moment, right? You know. It
was a light bulb moment. It was phenomenal. I'm like, oh my goodness, what did you do to me? You know, because it was stuck in my head for years, and then it went away. I remember I ran cross country in high school, and we would, you know, at that time it was like the short shorts, and I just remember being in high school just having that fear of walking around the campus with my uniform on, wanting to hide because I thought I had these huge legs. And I look back now and I'm like, wow, okay, no, you didn't.
Right. So let me ask you this. Bringing back to that time in your life, was it more that you didn't want to wear those shorts around because you were uncomfortable with it, or you didn't want to wear them because you thought people would be saying, oh, my God, look how big her thighs are? I mean, those are two totally different things. What do you think was playing in your head?
Because the shorts were so, you know, short, I was afraid of people seeing my legs. I was embarrassed of my legs. And because I was told something in an ugly way, it stuck with me, and it took away my confidence in myself. It made me want to cover up. And so when you have something that significant, and it transfers to my first sexual experience, and, you know, after that, until I finally went, oh, wait, no, this isn't okay.
Right. Yeah, you know, as a professional coach, you know, I work with a lot of people, a lot of clients who, you know, they want to lose weight or they want to change this about their shape or whatever. And it's funny how their entire self-identity and self-worth is tied to that. You know, if I lose this, I'll feel attractive. Or if I just want to be sexier. Well, either are, you're not. You know, it has nothing to do, I believe, it has nothing to do with whether you're going to be big or whether you're going to be small or whether you're going to arrive at a destination in your life and then the effect will be exactly what you want. It's either now or it's not. You know, so that's a really big, the heart and mind alignment training, the mindset training is such a major part of my coaching, aside from, okay, you know, calories in, fuel out, you know, you'll lose body fat, blah, 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 the mechanics of it all. The most important part is where is your heart and mind right now and where's your relationship with yourself? You know, can you look in the mirror and truly appreciate that person?
Well, I went to dinner with my friend, and there were some other women there, and they were older. I could tell by the way they dressed and they kind of carried themselves. They didn't have a lot of confidence in their bodies. They had some weight on, but the way they dressed, they hid it. And so it gave me, I asked each of them at the dinner. I said, ladies, what is your morning routine? And, a couple of people are, I get up, shower, I get dressed, I go to work. And I said, okay, how about this? I said, let's stop for a second. I said, one of the things I started doing is I would come home from yoga or whatever it is I do. I take my shower, and I found a lotion that I liked. And it went from my neck down all the way to my feet and everywhere in between. I got either my favorite body spray or perfume, put it on some nice lingerie type, not always like the G-string super sexy, but it's just pretty stuff that made me feel good. And I'd spray it on it and put it on. And I did this for me. I was married when I started this routine. It was for me. It was not about a man. I am also a frequent shaver, so that makes me feel good. But what it did is when I was done and I got dressed, I felt beautiful. I felt sexy, and it changed my confidence. And so when I went out to the world, go to the grocery store, I always found my head was held high, and I smiled at people just by doing a simple routine like that.
Wow. That's amazing.
And the ladies kind of looked at me like, oh, wow, that's great. Yes, it can change what you do for you, not for a man or a significant other. It's taking care of you, a little piece of you, and then it carries me out throughout the rest of the day. And I still do it.
Wynn, your thoughts? Anything on your end there? Wynn, are you there? Did we lose her?
Maybe.
Maybe. I hope she's still on. Okay. Anyway, I'm sure she'll look. There you are.
The funny thing is, no, you caught me. Here I am talking away, and I have my mic on mute. So you guys hear me coughing, geez. And so, no, I sat here listening to this conversation, and I just feel like the women have to be, and the men too, have to be confident in their self-worth before we move on. Because as Mel and Rebecca said, if we're not confident, we don't have anything. So I think that's a great tip, Rebecca, that you just said, to treat your body as if it was doing what you wanted with a guy. And I just think that's the greatest tip in the world. Now, if we could convince young children to get over their body images, that would be helpful too.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
So I think that it's time to get kids over the body image factors and get kids to the point of saying, I love myself, I love my body, let's move on.
Yeah, it's also an unfortunate thing if you look at, oh God, I hate bringing this up, but just the obesity problem in this country. I mean, our children are in just seriously bad shape. And I know that this may sound contradictory, but I was just speaking about no matter what size you are, you should have that self-confidence within you. You either have it or you don't, right? Well, that's an accumulation as an adult because you're going to have the emotional intelligence and the personal maturity to sift through all that. But when you're a child, oh my God, it's got to be agonizing. And once that event happens, as you had shared, Rebecca, with yourself and myself, I was just this rail of a boy. I graduated high school at the same height I am now. I was 5'7" at the time, and now at 53, I'm a Sparky 5'6", I lost an inch. But, you know, I was 130 pounds dripping wet, for Christ's sakes. I was just this rail. And you want to talk about the other end of the spectrum, you know, I don't know if there's any quality between being really heavy and just being a really skinny boy. You know, from a male perspective, that's a hard pill to swallow. And then I went on this just mission to make myself the most muscular I could possibly be. And I had a very good, you know, bodybuilding career years in the 80s and 90s. And now at 53, I'm the leanest and most athletic I've ever been. You know, I'm very proud of that, and I worked on that. But even still with all that physical transformation, I would have to say that my self-confidence really didn't all come together within until probably as early as 2 years ago. For every square inch of my body where I said, you know, I love how you are. God, I love how I am. I like this part of myself. You know, I'm not, you know, I don't feel inferior about it. You're talking about the age of, I'm 52 now, I'll be 53 August 1st, so 50, right? At 50, it wasn't until 50 that I got to that point. After spending, 32 years of my adulthood physically transforming my body because when I was young, I started out as a skinny little kid who didn't want to be that way anymore. 32 years of that self-image and perception. And now here I'm at 50, 2 years ago, I find the light bulb goes off and says, hey, I love how I am. And and I turn the corner from there on. There's got to be some people that never even get to that corner, right? What do you think, Rebecca?
Oh, I agree. I was around late 30s, early 40s when it was all the yoga, and getting comfortable with staring at myself and stop beating myself up, not having that voice in my head. And because with my son's heart surgery and things that I've been through, you know, my weight has gone up and down, and I've done fitness trainers and thought about bodybuilding. But I just go, okay, I'm not going to let that get in my way anymore. I'm not going to get in my head. I have to let it go because I refuse to walk with my head down anymore. I want to walk with my head up and with confidence.
Wow. That's beautiful. Seriously, that's a phenomenal self-perception. You know, and I don't know if you can quantify that statistically as to, you know, from a global statistic or even a national statistic, what sample size could you possibly take to take a poll of how many people out there simply can do that, simply have that self-confidence and do the routine that you say earlier, can do it at all without, you know, not being able to look in the mirror and do that. And the length of time it would take them. Yeah. The transition it would take them, the length of time it would take them to where they got to be comfortable with themselves, regardless of their size and shape. Right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you know, there is no, I'm going to be this when I'm that. No, it's now. It has to be now. There is no such thing as, if I get in shape, I'm going to feel sexy, or I'm going to feel better about myself, or I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. No, people, it's now. Please do it now. You know, Stop the lies in your head immediately, because they're lies. They are. Yep. You know. So anyway, Wynn, where are you?
I'm right here, and I wholeheartedly, 100% agree with what Rebecca and Mel said today, and I wholeheartedly agree with Mel's last statement. You need to say I'm pretty. You need to say I'm confident. You need to say I love my body, especially if you're disabled and you have a million scars all over you from surgery like I do, and especially if you are obese. I'm sorry that the obesity epidemic is going crazy, and I'm sorry we're stuffing food in our bodies like there's no tomorrow, but you at the same time need to have the self-confidence to say I love my body I love who I am, and then move on. That's the only way you're going to move on.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So, yes, that's my piece to it. That's my piece to it. Because first step, and I think the largest step in all this, is self-confidence. And then we start talking about sex openly, and then we have a better conversations in our lives. This heebie-jeebies of let's be the skinniest model, and let's do one unit of sex ed talk in a PE class doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for my teaching style because I grew up without having a disability. I didn't find out the true meaning of my disability until I was in high school. I knew I had a disability, but I knew I had a disability, but I was raised as if I had no disability whatsoever. I was given the call letters for cerebral palsy, CP, from a young age. Figured out at age 6 something went wrong with me. By the time I got to high school, I was given the opportunity to do a presentation on my own disability. Unfortunately, that presentation never resulted to happen, but while me doing the research for that presentation, I opened up the laptop and I typed in what is CP, Googled it, almost closed the laptop, almost started to cry because when I found out what is CP, I'm like, oh boy, we have a huge, not only a body shaming epidemic, but epidemic of I'm disabled. Now what am I supposed to do with my body? Fall into a hole about it? I don't think so. And so that's why I think these sexual units in a PE class one time doesn't work for me. And that's my piece about it.
Wow, that's amazing. That's quite the history. Thank you for sharing that, Wynn.
Well, you're welcome. As you go, wow, gulp. And so, I was given the call letters from a young age. I figured out that something was wrong with me at the age of 6. Because I saw my friends moving easier than I. And then when I finally got to high school, I was actually given the opportunity to state my disability, and at the time I only knew it as CP, aka cerebral palsy.
Right. I'm reading this book about.
So
I'm sorry.
That's why I feel like we should all accept our bodies, and that's why we brought Rebecca on to start the conversation open and honest with all of us.
Absolutely. If I could just share one last part here. I listen to a lot of audiobooks, and I'm in the professional business of guidance, coaching, and inspiration. I'm not in the business of convincing. I'll tell you that, because if you got to convince somebody to become better, it's just not going to happen. You're just going to drain yourself. So one of the audiobooks that I'm listening to right now is called The Subtle Art of, pardon my French, but I think in this climate it's okay. The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, right? Okay. I think at some point, and it's written by Mark Manson. I'm into the first chapter already, and it talks about just not caring, doing things without expectation, not caring about what people think, definitely is probably the biggest and most healthiest thing you could possibly do, which is a lot easier said than done, but I'm at that point. I've been through enough pain, enough losses, enough failures to where I don't give a shit what people think about me. I really don't. I only focus on what I could do forward and adding value to people's lives. I think one of the first steps, and what that means in this format, in this forum right here, is that one of the first steps to really taking action now, as I had mentioned earlier, as far as where are you now, is, don't care and don't have any expectations. Don't care about what people think. Don't care about what people, say about you or what you think they think of you. First of all, you don't know what people think of you unless they tell you to your face. It's all in your head, right? And even if they did, it's none of your business. So move on. Shed yourself of any of these preconceived notions of what you think people are going to think of you or judge you for if they're not really openly doing it anyway, right? So if there is no hey or cause and effect, and then there is no hey, if I do this, I will achieve this later, or if I accomplish this, I will feel this way later. If we're going to do away with that and live in the here and now and accept yourself for who you are, so you can have a better relationship with yourself, which leads to a better self-sexuality and sharing of sexuality, don't give a shit. Don't give a fuck. Move on. You are who you are. You're going to be sexy. Be sexy now. I don't care how much weight you lose. I don't care how much weight you gain. If you don't have that foundation first, then the effect isn't going to be any better from the cause anyway, right? So anyway, that's my parting shot with it, ladies. I just thought I'd bring it up because it kind of struck a chord in me with what I said earlier, and I'm not trying to contradict what I said earlier. I'm just trying to offer a method and a tool and a mechanism by which all adults should be able to deal with and work through. There you go.
No, and we, as we said, and I agree too with Mel, that we need to have open and honest conversation about this, and we need to have beautiful self-body images. And I am going to be 30 gulp, and I have finally accepted me. And it took me into my 30s, and I finally accepted, okay, this is what I really am. I have CP, I have battle scars to prove it too. But I really had that conversation with myself when I was truly diagnosed doing self-research, even though I was properly diagnosed with call letters of CP back in, I don't know, the 80s. And so even when I was in high school, I had that conversation with myself. Okay, this is what I truly am. We've got to accept disabilities here, and we've got to move on. And I do not give a flying rat's ass what people say about my scars anymore, because they're mine and they're completely healed, but you can still see evidence of them. But I don't give a rat's ass because it's part of beautiful body image. Thank you very much. End of tirade. Move on. Move on.
I love that. Hey, Win, chicks with scars are hot.
Yes. And Rebecca would probably agree.
Oh my God, that's so great.
And Rebecca would probably agree. And so where can people find you, Rebecca, and what's the best way to get hold of you to have this open and honest conversation about this and about what we talked about? Not only sex, but beautiful body image too.
Well, I have a Facebook page, The Art of Sexuality. I'm working on a website. I'm also on Instagram. And I'm posting lots and lots of stuff every day, sharing articles, encouraging the conversation. So best place to start with Facebook.
Best place to start with Facebook. And when are you guys launching into midair on the airwaves, because there's no pun intended? And when are you guys planning to take this out to the airwaves, too?
Rebecca, may I?
Absolutely.
Okay. Guys, ladies and gentlemen, people out there in the world, Rebecca and I are pumped, literally, to get this off the ground. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. It was excellent. We're looking April, and we are going to delve into anything and everything from a very emotionally intelligent approach, from a very detailed, graphic, whatever it is that you need to help you understand and appreciate the art of sexuality. And Rebecca, I am so looking forward to an amazing collaboration with you. I think it's going to be wonderful, and I think we're going to add a lot of value out there, and it's just going to be a lot of fun. What are your thoughts?
Oh, I'm super excited about it, too, because everywhere I go, I love talking about sex. And
yeah.
I love the, I don't hold anything back, and I don't judge, and I think that's because of my personality and my openness. It gets people to open up to me, and so I just love being able to have the conversation. And, sometimes the conversations I had, I find that there's a whole other issue through it, and that's what I pick up on. And so I'm really, really excited to be able to help people and make a difference in their life, and who knows, maybe even save some relationships on the way.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Hey, Wynn, maybe in the future we can all have another discussion like this, periodically, just to kind of add up some spice to it and really, just kind of touch on, and we can build on the whole self-image and self-perception thing, because I think it's an important thing that we should discuss. What do you think?
Yes, I heavily agree, because self-image is not the easiest thing, but look, I have accepted it, and I'm almost 30, and it took me a long time to accept that I have CG and I am scars to prove it, but now I am ready to move on, and I don't give a rat's ass as to what people think, and the pills come laughing all day long, because I truly don't. And whether you're fat or skinny or purple or green, I don't care. We need to have this open conversation about sex and quit calling it the birds and bees. And then we need to have a more prevalent conversation about self-acceptance and beautiful body image.
Awesome. Rebecca, you see why I love working with Wynn? She's got this amazing personality, right?
Yes, she does.
Well,
brilliant
I
and fun at the same time.
And passionate, very passionate.
Oh, very.
I love that.
No,
Very. I got to bring my A game every time I get on the phone with her, I can't be falling asleep at the wheel.
To say the least. Passionate to say the least.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies. This has been
wonderful.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Close us out.
Thank you guys. And I hope you guys enjoyed another fabulous episode. And when these guys launch their podcast, no pun intended, I will be certainly telling you guys where to get it, certainly telling you guys what I'm up against, and certainly supporting these guys as they go into this fascinating podcasting journey. And so I hope you guys will support them as much as you guys have supported me over the past 4 years. We're coming up on our 5th year in June. I can't believe it. And so I hope you support these guys as much as you have supported me. And I want the art of sexuality to be a huge success in the podcasting, because not only is it going to be about sex, as we said, it's going to be about beautiful body images too, and let's make this world a better place by having these open and honest conversations. And I hope you guys enjoyed another fabulous episode. Thanks to you guys.
Thank you.
you.